Work together to stop bullying. Let's stop bullying now.
Good afternoon from Mickey, Aurora, and from me from Castle Goring. Well, life is returning to normal. The Jubilee's over. Ascot is over. Aurora and Mickey have just got over being in my lap. So without further ado, I'm going to plunge right in with Susan Griffiths, who says, the palace has announced that a conclusion has been reached on the investigation into the accusation of Meghan bullying her staff, and that the conclusion will not be made public. What are your thoughts on this? And in the same vein, so that I can answer it all in one, Lulu says, Lady C, loved your headband. Thank you very much. Jada Acero, she is contactable, I'm sure, somehow on the internet or whatever, and she's fabulous. You can't get better than Jada. To resume the question, incidentally, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because Jada is a wonderful millionaire, and I'm sure some of you will get great pleasure out of patronizing her. So, to resume the question, why in the world is the palace not going to let the bullying probe on Megs be published or see the light of day? How is this fair to the staff members whom we know Megs bullied? I find it appalling to squelch the report. Your thoughts? And I've read them out because I want to answer the two questions in one go, and each question has a slightly different dimension, as I'm sure you figured out. Well, the fact that the findings are not being made public actually doesn't alter the fact that the public already know that Meghan was guilty as charged, because the accusations came from Jason Knopf, concerned Samantha Cohen, and one or two others whom I will not name because one of them is particular in that she doesn't want to be named, but she has a very exotic surname. Let's put it that way. No announcement needs to be made because as long as Meghan hasn't been exonerated, that means she has been condemned. They don't need to pour oil on the fire. If they make the announcement that Meghan was found guilty as charged, which clearly has to be the outcome, otherwise they would have now announced that she was exonerated, and she would have announced that she was exonerated. By not announcing that she was exonerated, they have as good as announced that she has been condemned. How fair is this to the staff members whom we know Megsy baby bullied? They've got justice. A new system is in place, as was announced at the time of the inquiry. Lessons have been learnt. No one else is going to be able to behave towards staff the way a Megsy baby did. Squelching the report is not vindicating them. They are vindicated. If, on the other hand, the report were made public, you can depend on it. Meghan would wade in, as would her camp followers, the band of idiots, almost criminal idiots. They would be wading in, oh, it's racism. Like the fact that your skin is brown means that your heart is allowed to be black and your tongue as red as a devil. I don't think that's how it works. Skin color has nothing to do with the color of your heart or your tongue. Speak with forked tongue, you are bad. Whether you are yellow, white, pink, green, blue, or any other color in the rainbow. I think that should pretty much summarize the fact that if they announced the findings, that it would create a hue and cry, and the palace has no wish to be divisive. Meghan and Harry have a wish to be divisive. They have been playing the colour card from the day that their relationship was announced. You think they're not going to play it again? Of course they're going to play it again. Does the palace need to be embroiled in yet another nonsensical, totally fabricated scenario where Meghan and Harry have created problems where none should exist? And having created the problems, they then spin it around so that everybody else is guilty and they are innocent? No, I think the palace has been very sensible. They said it was going to be an internal inquiry. It has been an internal inquiry. They don't need to make any announcement. Their very silence is deafening. Angelica Katerina Sazalas says, hello, Lady C. My question is, did Harry and Meghan have to go because of the fake pregnancy with Archie? What do you think? What are commenters thinking? I also think that once Charles takes over, Harry will be taken out of the succession and the problem with the surrogacy will be dealt with that way. Any thoughts? Hugs to you and your adorable doggies and the cats. Woof woof meow. They send love too. Well, may I say, for legal reasons, your supposition that there was a fake pregnancy is merely a supposition. There is no incontrovertible proof that it was a fake pregnancy. And in the absence of such proof, one needs to err on the side of, shall we say, caution. What do other commenters think? I neither know nor care. I only care about what I think, if the truth be known. This is a subject that I have looked into very carefully while writing the book, and since having written the book and had this channel, because I have received possibly tens of thousands of comments and questions about the possibility of there having been a surrogacy where Archie was concerned and possibly where both children were concerned. And it has to be said, I have been in touch with the authorities about this matter in the past. They know my thoughts, indeed my recommendations on the subject. I think it is a wholly injurious and damaging speculative scenario which should never have arisen, irrespective of whether there was a surrogacy or not. If there was going to be a surrogacy, it should have been handled the way it has been handled by other people, such as the present Lord and Lady Bath, or indeed Kim Kardashian. Vulgar as she is, she handled the situation very well. Other people have done it as well. There's nothing wrong with having a surrogate. There's nothing wrong with surrogacy if that is the only way you can have a child. I personally think if you use it as a convenience, that begs the question as to your suitability as a parent. But if you can't bear children, why should you be deprived of the joys of parenthood when you can use a surrogate? Remember, I have 2 adopted children. I understand why somebody who has adopted children or surrogates would want, especially if there are titles involved, would want to avail their children of the benefit of a title. There's no doubt that titles in this culture are a benefit. I mean, Lady Aberdeen, the Marchioness of Aberdeen, June Aberdeen, went to great lengths to make sure that her 4 adopted children were made lords and ladies. And the Queen, evidently, in desperation to get rid of Lady Aberdeen's nagging, finally issued an order in council in the early 200s, stating that adopted children carry the courtesy titles of their parents. So not the mother, the father, unless, of course, the mother is a pair in her own right. And notice I didn't say a pairess in her own right, because a female pair is not a pairess. A pairess is the wife of a pair. So just to clear that little one up, because it's a mistake too many people make. But I understand if, and I'm now being speculative, if somebody who is married to a man with a title wants her children to have titles, and the British law being what it is, they have to go about a surrogacy in such a way that even if they are both the biological parents, in that the donors of the sperm and the egg, that child would still be technically illegitimate and need to be adopted by them, at which point the child would be able to have the courtesy titles. Now, to apply this to the Harry and Meghan situation and the Archie situation, and remember, I am not asserting one way or the other. I am simply stating that this is a situation that should never have arisen. It would never have arisen had Meghan and Harry, Meghan in particular, not made the exhibition of herself that she made during Archie's gestational period. There are a disquieting number of photographs which are anomalous. These are photographs that are readily obtainable through Getty Images. There is therefore no doubt that all of these photographs are a historic record of a discomforting situation that should never have arisen. Because if Meghan were pregnant with Archie, there is a mischief going on in the photographs. And if she had not been pregnant with Archie, there was still mischief being conveyed via the photographs. My recommendation has been and remains that this is a situation which is so anomalous and should never have arisen. And if the children are in the line of succession, the public has a right to know whether those children were born of surrogates. And if they were, why are they in the line of succession? Why is the law being bent? It's simple. These questions can be cleared up very simply. They would not have arisen had Meghan's bump not been so variable, had her conduct not been so ostentatious. There is no doubt that all this speculation can be traced back to Meghan's demeanour during Archie's gestational period. And it is a serious enough matter that it should be cleared up. And the fact that it trundles on without clarity is potentially very awkward and possibly damaging. Now, we come to the actual dilemma that the royal family would face and again for legal reasons I'm making the point, in the speculative event that it turned out that one or both of those children had been carried by a surrogate. This would place the royal family in an extremely invidious position. This would place them in one of the many no-win situations that Meghan and Harry's conduct, Meghan's especially, one of the many situations that have placed the royal family in a no-win situation. Because if the babies had been born by surrogates, the question would arise, at what point did the royal family know? had they colluded? Now, my own personal belief is that under no circumstances would the royal family ever collude in a situation like what has been speculated upon. I also would get why a woman married into a royal family who couldn't bear a child would want that child to have the honours that would be due to it were it legitimate. However, it is incumbent upon people in positions of privilege and leadership to abide by the rules, regulations, and laws that they are supposed to be embodying. And therefore, it would be, to put it mildly, not only irregular, but unjustifiable to pretend to be pregnant when you were not, just so that your child could succeed to honours to which it had no legal entitlement. Now, I'm not saying that Meghan did any of this. Let me be very clear about that. What I am saying is these questions keep on bubbling under the surface, and they are unacceptable. They are damaging. They should not, first of all, they shouldn't have risen in the first place. Secondly, the fact that they arose at all and arose because of her demeanour tells you a pretty shocking message as to how completely unsuitable she is, was, and always will be to have actually been a member of our royal family. Because really what these questions go to is Meghan's believability. And I'm afraid people don't find her and her conduct believable. We come back to the issue that also affects the announcement of the bullying accusation findings, the investigation. If it emerged that Meghan and Harry had gone down the surrogacy route, and because they wished to keep it private, they had failed to make the announcement, but had led people to believe that she was pregnant when she wasn't, one would be faced with the dilemma of, is one going to be compassionate and feel, oh well, she wanted to feel the pregnancy? Or would one be saying, this is a highly irregular and dubious situation which should never have arisen at all, and really we can save our compassion and condemn? I mean, this would open up a can of worms, not only for the couple involved, but for the family, because the question would be, at what point did the royal family and its advisors discover that things were not all that they appeared to be? I'm being very careful how I couch all of this. For legal as well as moral and responsible reasons. But put yourself in the shoes. If a situation like this had arisen, how would the royal family and its advisors ever be able to say, we discovered this too late to do anything, and we had to go along with it? I mean, they would be rarely in a no-win situation. But for legal reasons, I'm now going to say that if this has all been about Meghan's lust for attention and her game playing and her need to be provocative and mischievous and to play head games with people and to have flaunted her pregnancy in such a way that it created suspicions as to whether she was pregnant or not, the royal family, in my opinion, should have no compunction at some point about literally throwing her to the wolves and saying, this was an unacceptable situation that we found out about. Is that going to happen? I doubt very much it would ever happen, even if it turned out that the babies were born by surrogates. It would be too hot a potato. It would create the most tremendous international scandal. It would be incendiary in a way that no accusation of racism so far has been. Meghan and Harry have caused a great deal of damage through their conduct and their accusations to the royal family, to moderates throughout the Commonwealth, to the interests of moderation in this country as well as in the Commonwealth. If that were a bridge that had to be crossed, believe me, everything that has gone so far would be like a bagatelle compared to the tremendous, horrendous scandal that would be. And you would have everybody piling in, right-wing, left-wing, centrist, religions, everybody would be piling in with their 2 cents worth and creating the most ungodly stink, which, it has to be said, neither the royal family nor the institution of the monarchy nor the British nation, which is embodied by the royal family and its members, would find tolerable. As for the other part of the question, if Charles takes over, will Harry be taken out of the line of succession and the problems with the surrogacy dealt with that way? Well, first of all, we have no proof that there was a surrogacy or that there were 2 surrogacies. If there was a surrogacy and it had remained under wraps to that point, I would be very surprised that it would be exposed at that juncture. Harry can't be taken out of the line of succession. He has to renounce his rights to succession. He can only be taken out of the line of succession if he is attainted. That requires an act of parliament arising from a very serious criminal offence, the sort of criminal offence that until recently would have been dealt with by execution. So I don't think that Harry being taken out of the line of succession is a prospect. Will the children be made prince and princess? Now, that's a question that we can ask and wait to see what the answer is, because now that is a possibility. Rebecca says, "Hello, Lady C and the Poochies. They're both sleeping. Aurora is on the sofa with me and Mickey is under the coffee table. What would the royal family do to protect themselves if it's proven undeniably true that that woman used a surrogate? Thank you for taking the time to make these videos. You're a lady of beauty, intelligence, and humor. Sending my love." Thank you very much, Rebecca. Well, I'm glad to see that you appreciate my sense of humor and that you think I'm intelligent. And as for beauty, it's amazing, I have to say. When I was younger, I never thought I'd be getting compliments along this line at 72, coming up for 73. But I suppose it helps to not smoke, not drink too much, use Factor 50 sunscreen every single morning, always clean off my makeup, and use Johnson's baby lotion for night cream. Oh dear. Well, I sort of hope I've answered the question, but I will wrap it up by saying, if it emerged, which for legal reasons I have to make the point, it is very unlikely it is ever going to emerge, because it is a very unlikely, it is factual. Therefore, it begs other questions. So for legal reasons, I need to make those distinctions and clarify and say, I am not accusing anybody of anything in terms of having deceived the public about the viability of any pregnancy. But if it were proven that any woman had perpetrated a fraud upon the public by pretending to be pregnant when she wasn't, how would the parties, the innocent parties involved, protect themselves? Well, you know there's an expression, the truth will set you free. And the truth in a situation like that would have to be scrupulously applied. But fortunately, and I say this for legal reasons, it is not a breach any of us is ever going to have to cross, because that is an impossibility which will never come to pass. Gareth Jones says, William has Diana's good virtues and her physical looks. Unfortunately, Harry has Diana's vices. Such a pity. Gareth Jones is very interesting because Diana, for all her many virtues, had an equal and equivalent number of failings. She was a very contradictory personality. They do say children divide up the qualities amongst themselves, but I have seldom seen a situation where one child opted for the light and the other opted for the dark. Very, very, very striking situation. And yes, Harry doesn't only embody Diana's failings, he has externalized them and married somebody who has not only taken her failings to a totally different level than she would ever have taken them, but has exemplified what it is to simulate the worst aspects of someone else's character. Very sad. Jeffrey Skinner says, I thought royal permission would have been required before Harry and Meghan used the children and Meghan's picture all over their social media. Lady C, am I incorrect in my opinion? Then he said that I look fabulous in polka dots. I have to say, it's a total fluke that I wore that dress. Really, a total fluke. And that Catherine would wear polka dots the following day as well. The whole thing, a total fluke. But it goes to show that Catherine and I are on the same wavelength in terms of the zeitgeist. While poor Megsy baby, she came over in her Dior trench coat, which didn't suit her at all, well tailored, but she has a wrong figure for a belt, and she certainly has a wrong figure for a trench coat back that cuts across the shoulder blades. The whole thing, but the really terrible thing was that hat. Now, that hat was by Stephen Jones. I have to tell you, I know and like Stephen Jones. He's a very good milliner. That hat would have been perfect on another dress. But you do not wear a hat that is a lightweight material with a suit that is a heavyweight material. But these are the solecisms that the ignorant make, and that Meghan, sadly, when she makes them, shows she thinks she has good taste. She lacks good judgment, even in terms of anything sartorial. Now, as for using the photograph, well, why are we surprised? If there's a rule, Megsy baby is very happy to break it, as long as she's doing the breaking. But if there's a rule, when it applies to her, she can break it. But when it applies to you, in relation to her, you've got to respect it. Otherwise, you're sued. And you're victimizing her. And you're a racist. and you're sexist, and you're everyist, except a realist, because she's the only realist in the world. She's authentic. Aurora's just moved close to me. Aurora, Meg's baby says she's the only authentic person in the world. And I say, yes, Meg's baby, just like Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard. Mr. Day, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. The world's too small. The movies are too small. Everything's too small for a big character like me. Me, and me again. Davina says, Mike Tyndall is getting teased online by his ex-rugby teammates for allowing Harry and Meghan to use his daughters for a publicity stunt at the Jubilee. Notice, Archie and Lily are never anywhere with their parents. Of course not. They are very special. They have to be kept on ice. They can't be exploited by the public. Well, they can be exploited by their parents, but nobody's allowed to use them. But everybody else is cannon fodder. Cecilia Jameson says, have you seen where the Tyndalls are getting lots of flack on Markle in pictures with their kids and not her own? They always set themselves up, don't they just? You know, I do not actually know, I haven't really seen the pictures on social media. So I'm taking your word that the pictures have been published. And I'm sure they have, because I don't expect any of you to be actually inventing this. And certainly Meghan and Harry's people are constantly inventing things. But on this scale and in this scenario, no, it's obvious that the pictures. So I'm going to read out another comment, because I want to cover this in one fell swoop. Lady C, do you know that Meghalaya posted the pictures with Peter Phillips and Zara and Mike Tyndall's minor children on Meghan's mirror merching her clothes? Did she have permission to post pictures of other people's children? I bet that Princess Anne is very angry, as I would be if someone posted my grandchildren's pictures online. Can they sue? Yes, they can actually sue. You're not allowed to use the photographs of children. And Meghan and Harry are very, very happy to sue everybody, even when there is a suspicion that they are delighted that the photographs were published. But would they sue? Of course they're not going to sue. And this is something that Meghan and Harry's followers, people, supporters, however you want to put it, the people who are posting these pictures on their behalf. And doubtless if they had any objection to the photographs being published, they being Harry and Meghan, they would make an announcement to that effect, or issue proceedings against the person who published the photograph. And in the absence of such an action, we can conclude that there is an element of agreement. Let's put it that way. But can the Phillips and Tyndall families sue? Yes. Are they going to? No. Harry and Meghan know it's very unlikely that his cousins would sue. And would Princess Anne be upset? I should think any parent or grandparent in a situation where their loved ones have been set up to be exploited for the furtherance of the ambitions of another member of the family, with scant regard for the victim's rights, but always with nothing but overweening regard for the perpetrator's own rights. Of course, they would be cross. Human beings, royal, aristocratic, middle class, working class, peasant class, no class, every class, are all, if they've got feelings, gonna feel the same way. You know, as I said to Steve McQueen once, scratch anybody and their blood flows red. Twisted Sister says, she has got some nerve. She won't allow any photos of her children, yet she releases photos of other people's children. I hope the Tyndalls sue them. Well, I'm just repeating this and one other comment because I want to make it clear that this is a pretty universal response. But we need to remember that if Meghan and Harry themselves didn't post those photographs, they have deniability. And Meghan and Harry are very good at working themselves into the position where they have deniability. I just say that for what it's worth, because they are very slick operators who know how to work every angle to their hoped for advantage and everybody else's hoped for detriment. The fact, of course, that they are so flagrant and therefore so transparent, and therefore that the more situations of that nature go on, is the more supporters they lose, is where we're not very clever. But then operators usually aren't clever, because if you're really clever, you know, don't be an operator, be the real thing. Vivian Birchall says, what do you think of the wife posting a picture of her shushing Zara's children on their Duke and Duchess website, saying how they had a good time at the trooping? I have a feeling they live to regret it if they ever come face to face with Princess Anne. So Vivian Birchall is saying that it was posted on their website. Well, as I say, I haven't had the time, or quite frankly, the inclination to check and see. I've just taken everybody's word for the fact that so many people have mentioned this, that something has been posted, and maybe it's been posted in more than one place. And quite frankly, if this is a situation where Harry and Meghan for once are innocent, and all I'll say is, remember the little boy who cried wolf when the big bad wolf came? Nobody believed him. So if they're innocent, they're innocent. But they've done so much else in keeping with this sort of scenario that may as well hang for a sheep as hang for a goat, as the old expression is. Of course, we need to say who posed for the picture. Meghan posed for that picture. Meghan positioned herself. Did Meghan organize with somebody with a long range lens? I'm going to be posing at this window. You need to catch me. Because whoever photographed her is the person who owns the copyright, unless she and or Harry employ them, in which case they own the copyright. But if the photographs are being posted, they are being posted with the acceptance and connivance of the copyright owner. So this indicates that deniability is a fig leaf that when you tear it off shows responsibility. Lily Rose Summerfield says, so what you're saying, Lady C, is that the royal family has become a toothless, impotent, powerless joke that can be dominated by a couple of deranged traitors. So what's the point of having a royal family other than as just another tourist attraction, albeit an obscenely expensive one that keeps us entertained with scandal after scandal? Well, Lily Rose Summerfield, I'm not absolutely sure what you're referring to, because I do not recall ever having said that the royal family, or indeed indicated that the royal family has become a toothless, impotent, powerless joke. Nor have I actually said that they can be dominated by a couple of deranged traitors. What I have said, and let's be clear about it, is that they are playing the long and very sophisticated game in giving them, the difficult members of the family, enough rope to hang themselves with. I have also made the point that the royal family has an obligation to live up to a civilized, honourable code of conduct. And that means that they cannot be punitive or precipitate in their responses when the public require them to be punitive and precipitate. I've made all of those points repeatedly. So I'm afraid if you've got the message that you seem to have got, you need to listen a little bit more clearly to what I say and appreciate the fact that a complex situation has nuances, and that you cannot erase the nuances without erasing your responsibility for behaving and reacting in an honourable, ethical, responsible manner. Now, as for what's the point of having a royal family other than just another tourist attraction, well, it's the primary tourist attraction. So, and since to a large extent Britain is a service economy and a tourist economy, you know, if you want to cut off your nose to spite your face, please feel free to go ahead. I prefer to keep my nose on my face. And you say it's an obscenely expensive one that keeps us entertained with scandal after scandal. I agree. It keeps us entertained with scandal after scandal. That I agree with. Obscenely expensive. The British royal family costs us 58p per annum per person. That is nothing compared to what they bring in. Now, I come from a background where people actually had to make money, because my father's family were emigres. So they had to make money. They weren't like the average Western politician who doesn't know how to produce wealth, only how to spend the wealth that others have produced. This is one of the big problems in the Western world, that we are led by people who are ignorant as to the realities of producing wealth. Without wealth, nobody in the country can benefit from a good standard of living. I personally think that it is in our interests to have everybody in this country, and if we could swing it in the world, have as good a standard of living as possible, as comfortable an existence as possible. I'm not overly fussy if many people have a lot more than I do, and many people do. Covet not thy neighbour's wife, nor thy neighbour's ass, it says in the Bible. And I happen to believe that the Ten Commandments have very good, principled, and ethical messages to give. And covetousness, I happen to think, is a very great failing. I know that people nowadays think that if they are interested in advancing themselves, that allows for covetousness. It doesn't. Covetousness is always destructive. Sorry. And I'm old enough and I am sufficiently well placed enough in life to have seen both sides of the coin. And I have to tell you that as far as I'm concerned, this royal family, for all its failings, and it has failings, is infinitely preferable, as is constitutional democratic monarchy, wherever it is applied, to republicanism. Republican forms of government mean that you end up with a head of state who wants power. In the very act of wanting power, that means that they have a flaw. On the other hand, if nature, God, the universe, however you want to put it, creates a family that is brought up from the word go to serve the nation and embody the virtues and the interests of that nation, as most European monarchies do. Not only European, Japanese, etc., etc. That means we are fortunate enough to have a head of state that embodies the interests of all of the people, even the people who don't like it. You can't say the same about a democratically elected president. Brenda Brockett says, Lady C, good morning from Montana, USA. Good morning to you too, even though it's the afternoon here. I've been following you for a while now and thoroughly enjoy your shows, particularly your well-founded information and or opinions regarding the royal family. I also adore your beautiful fur children, Mickey and Aurora. I was impressed by the way the Queen used a steel fist covered in a velvet glove to send a clear message to Harry and Meghan. It was done in such a positive manner that it left little room for complaint. Although her body is becoming frail, especially after Prince Philip's death, there is nothing wrong with her mind. I have great respect for the way she conducts the business of the monarchy and the royals. Thank you for that. I've read it out because I happen to agree with that. The Queen has nothing wrong with her mentally. She is an old lady. As we get older, our bodies start to fail us. But her moral fibre and her brains are still there. What the Queen is actually doing, and I'm now going to keep Harry and Meghan out of it because I think you're absolutely right. I think she handled the whole situation brilliantly. She gave them what they wanted. They can't complain about that. Well, of course they can and will, but that's beside the point. But what the Queen has done and is doing is creating a soft regency. She is handing over in ways that don't prevent her from keeping the reins of the reign, R-E-I-N-S, of the R-E-I-G-N in her hand. But she is stepping back and allowing her successors and the family to replace her visibly so that people will get used to the fact by the time she's dead that she's not going to be around forever. That is rarely taking a long view. That is the antithesis of vanity. That is the embodiment of responsibility. That is truly thoughtful, not only to her successors, but to us, the public, most of whom have a high regard for her. Even those who are not pro-monarchist have a high regard for her. And she is showing us not only what a good monarch is all about, but what good monarchy is all about. And that you cannot get in any other form of government but a constitutional monarchy. And on that note, I will say, I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. Please remember to keep the questions and comments coming in because this cannot be done without you. Thank you so much for listening. God bless and goodbye.